Hi, I'm back for another short video lecture, now this time regarding nursing disciplinary action. Before anything else, I would like to put things in context by having a review of the nursing management process. As you all know, the nursing management process starts with planning. This is when we did SWOT analysis, the mission and vision, and then followed up by the process of organizing. This is where we did the organizational chart, the setup of the ward, as well as the duty roster. Next to that is staffing, where we did recruitment, nursing care assignment, and patient allocation. And next to that process is the process of directing, where we discuss several rules and regulations, policies, like CPR, drug administration, controlled narcotics, and peripheral IV administration. Now, we are now in the process of control. This is the last process in the management process, and this include disciplinary action and our topic for next week, which will be performance appraisal. Now, before we move on, let us define first what is discipline. Discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. Authority to instill discipline to employees should be given to managers. Otherwise, the last management process of control might not be followed, and the result will surely be devastating. Before we discuss the process of disciplinary action, we need to clarify some points. Nursing disciplinary action in this presentation is limited only to the place of employment, meaning this is instilling of discipline only at the place of employment or in the hospital where you are employed. We will not be involving disciplinary action that requires revocation of license to practice nursing through Board of Nursing or in case of Oman through OMSB. Neither we will not include disciplinary action for civil cases that requires payment of sum of money as penalty, or we will not include disciplinary action for criminal cases that requires imprisonment or payment of fine or both. Lastly, disciplinary action in military establishment is different from disciplinary action in civilian employment. So we need to clarify all of these things before we move on. Nursing disciplinary actions can be due to the following: unsafe practice, incompetence, violation of the code of ethics for nurses, substance abuse, physical or mental condition, and non-compliance with rules, regulations, policies, especially protocols. The disciplinary action process might be different from one hospital to another, but for sake of discussion, let us have some benchmark. The disciplinary action starts with step one, counseling, wherein the head nurse notes unacceptable practice behavior, and this is where your anecdotal notes will um, will be very beneficial. Anecdotal notes are notes wherein nurse managers do for them to have a reference on for the future. After noting unacceptable practice or behavior, the head nurse arranges counseling session with the employee and document issues discussed during counseling session. After which, file counseling form is filed in the staff profile, but only at the ward file. The ward file will be different from the employee file in the personnel department. If upon follow-up of the case, the report is negative, then it is elevated to middle management. Otherwise, if the report is positive, the case should be closed. Step 2, issuance of verbal warning. Now, despite the fact that you did counseling already and it still progresses to something else or they keep on repeating the same offense, you can now proceed to step 2, the issuance of verbal warning. The process includes higher authority receiving report from the head nurse and arranging meeting with employee. Employee explains conduct in question. It's very important for you to give the chance to the employee to explain themselves in instilling disciplinary action. This is very, very important. Consider employee explanation if it's acceptable. Now, if it's acceptable, then you can close the case. Otherwise, you can issue verbal warning, and the report should be filed not in the ward file now, but in the personnel department file of that employee. If follow-up is positive, then document in the file of personnel department. Otherwise, you can now refer the case to the next level management. Step 3, the issuance of written warning. The first level management receive report from middle management. They arrange again a meeting with employee. Interview and counsel will take place. They can issue written warning if warranted. Now, if follow-up is positive, then document in the file of personnel department only. Otherwise, you can refer the case to a final arbitral committee for final written warning. Now, this committee can recommend suspension or termination of service based upon severity of unacceptable practice or misconduct. So the next step to disciplinary action is suspension. You can be suspended. What is suspension? A suspension is when you remain employed but are asked to not attend your place of work or engage in any work at all. Different hospitals they have different rules regarding suspension. Sometimes you can be suspended with pay or you can be suspended without pay. But most of the time you are suspended because they don't want you to interfere with ongoing investigation. Suspension is often part of an organization's disciplinary procedure to allow an investigation to take place. Employees can be suspended for medical or health and safety reasons, like in cases of quarantines nowadays with COVID 19. Um, but in suspension, take note, you remain an employee and your employment rights continue while you are suspended. Termination of service. Termination of employment refers to the end of an employee's contract with a company. An employee may be terminated from a job of their own free will or following a decision made by the employer. Now, suspension is different from termination of service, in which you are not an employee anymore and your employment rights cease to exist. So that's it for disciplinary action for administrative cases in the place of employment. Um, I wish you good day and let us all stay safe and healthy.